Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Watch Moths July 2021. We've got the same kind of run through as last night, except this morning we're going to have more moths, which is really exciting. Yet again, we are recording and we are broadcasting on Facebook. And so if you would prefer to remain anonymous, then please do turn off your camera, and if you'd like to remain anonymous to the other people in the broadcast in the Zoom room, then please rename yourselves by clicking on the three little dots at the top right hand corner of your picture. We've got the chat function down the bottom. We'd really love to hear whether, if you were chatting last night, whether you caught much, whether the weather turned last night where you were, and we're going to pop an email address in the chat for you to share if you've got any particularly exciting catches from last night. If you have been mothing, we'd love to see pictures of those. If you send them through to Chloe, then she'll try and get round to showing a few of those. We can't show them all, I'm afraid, but we can give it a go. So on that note, I'm going to, we've also got our reactions, of course, same as, so you can give the moths a little bit of a round of applause for coming out in wet and windy weather. And on that note, I'm going to pass over to my colleague Naomi.
Yeah, well, good morning, everybody. I hope you all slept well and are excited to see what everybody's found in their traps through the storm last night. Some people, I think Emma up in Oxfordshire hasn't quite had the rain yet, so but I think a lot of the people that have traps out have had rain overnight. We pressed the button to let you all in to the music of Frank Sinatra, Fly Me to the Moon, and we've been having fun trying to create a playlist, but we're worried about the, what's it called? We're worried about
licensing.
Yeah, we're worried about, but we would love to hear if you have any ideas for tunes that include moths or energy, or that mothy to the flame theme. We'd love it if you put it in chat. Today we have a whole range of people to talk to you. Some of them are the same as last night, and there is, in addition, there is Claire from Plymouth Energy Community, who partner with us in this project. They're a part of the Art and Energy Collective, so we will be visiting her shortly. And we also have an item about the work that we've been doing with Plymouth schools and the youngsters' view of moths and Moths to a Flame project. So we're looking forward to that too. But Simon is first up. Simon Bates is first up in Exeter with his moth trap and his finds overnight. So how have you done, Simon?
Hi, morning everybody. It's been a good night actually. It started raining about 9 o'clock actually when we finished last night. And then the heavy rain came in at about 11 o'clock. And I thought, oh, but actually it's been a great catch, which just goes to show that, as long as it's warm, then the moths will be there. If I just spin round, I just show you the context of my trap. So I'm in Exeter, and I run this homemade Skinner trap here. And so my garden is quite small, but we have a nice hazel tree there, which is really good for all sorts of moths. The Buckley is just coming out now. Spin round, we've got, lots of different sort of flowering plants here. My wife is the gardener. She's brilliant at all of this. We've got some loose strife there. We've got a tiny little pond. The other bit of context is that you can hopefully just see that we're quite close, well, about 400 meters away from a nice bit of woodland. It's not a very large bit of woodland, but it's quite diverse in terms of oaks and ash and things like that. Anyway, you want to know what I've caught, and it was a good night. So let's zoom in and have a look at some of these arches to start with. Going to hopefully get the focusing right here. so you can see the difference. Somebody say something, because I'm not. I am. Is the sound coming through? Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So, what have we got here? We've got a couple of buff arches. Dark arches here, and then there's a ribboned wave, which is quite common. But this is a new one in the trap. This is I wish it would focus properly. It seems to be struggling.
We're going to be. Oh no, there we are. That's good.
There we go. So that.
And we're going to feel a bit queasy in a minute, but we're all right now.
So that's it's either a grey or a dark dagger. You can't actually tell. These are one of the moths that you can't tell without looking at the genitalia, which I do. But that's either a dark arches or the other one. Let's have that one, because that's going to feature a lot today. And I mounted it as it should be on a twig. And just don't get bored of these, do we?
No, we don't. We love those. Good old tips.
I mean, look, it's even got a little face, hasn't it?
Yeah.
When you turn away. I mean, what fantastic camouflage. Really superb buff tip. What else have I got to show you? Oh, yeah. Of course, I've got an elephant hawk moth. And why is it that this moth is coloured as it is? I mean, apparently some of the moths get their colour from the food plants that they eat as a caterpillar. Well, this one is, I think Dave or Paul said, is on rosebay willow herb, and different types of willow herb, which are not, I mean, they're mostly green plants. So I don't get that. Maybe Dave could explain later. There's a small blood vein there. Actually,
that's rather fragile looking, but really nice.
It is, isn't it? It's a beautiful little moth. There's another one called the blood vein, which is quite common, and that's even more stunning. I do like those moths. We've got a early thorn. So Paul showed you early thorn. Let's see if I can get that into focus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the moths that they rest with their wings up like a butterfly. They're lovely things. So this is, why is it called early thorn? Well, there's a first generation early on February, well, springtime, and then a second generation. This is a second generation moth, probably around about this time, but that they do generally occur early in the year, although maybe not this year. Green silver lines, so that was on the menu last night. And actually, I'm quite pleased to get one. I don't get many of those. They're mainly woodland things, feeding on a range of shrubs. So I don't catch many of those. Look at this. Look at that.
What's that one then?
What would you call it, Naomi? Give it a name.
A double dot. A little brown double dot one. I don't know.
We do better than that, can't we?
No, sorry.
No. I mean, it's just, look, it's got that, maybe it's not coming across very well, but it's got this beautiful reddish, orangish colour. Perhaps it looks to me like the black lines have been etched on.
It's got a sort of pinkish tone to it.
Yeah. So that's Rosie Footman. What else to show you? I think that's about everything for the moment. But
you've done well.
I'll keep rummaging in the truck.
Simon, when you get the moths out, and they also hang about on the egg boxes like that, are they just are they just in shock, or are they sleepy, or are they about to go and find somewhere to rest during the day? What's going on with them, do you reckon?
So you can see that these they're called the noctuids. There's a family called the noctuids that tend to be sort of, what are they like, triangular shaped and they lie flat. So you can see that they're just sitting there very, very happily, and they will often just sit there, and you can put them on your hand and, you know, they won't do very much. But others like these, the geometrids, are much more flighty. Really difficult to hang on to those. I think also, actually, I must show you this one. It's tiny, but we found that last. This is quite a common moth you'll find at the moment. I call it the Harrier jump jet moth because of the, hopefully you can see that, the way it holds its wings in a sort of tent-like structure. Endotrichia flammealis. So that one, you know, if I disturb, be off very quickly.
Yeah.
That's probably enough from me.
Yeah, thank you very much. We enjoyed seeing those. You've done really well there. And in our audience, we've got there's Sarah Shuttleworth. Are you there, Sarah? Because you said something that about when you catch the moths, you have some sort of creche or place in which you hold them during the day, maybe. Are you there?
Yeah, here's my moth creche, which,
yeah,
as you can see, sorry, it's got my husband's name on it if I haven't changed it. Yeah, so basically when the trap's really, really busy, then I just make sure that I can put all of the egg boxes in here, and this is where I hold them during the day, somewhere cool in the house, and then I release them and count them as later on in the evening. I only put the trap out till about 11 o'clock last night because we're going on holiday today, so I just couldn't handle 80 species to go through. But even in that time, I haven't gone through, but I've got about 20 ruby tigers, 20 of them. But also I'm rather famous now for being lucky enough to have quite a few lappet moths around here, which the lappet moth basically is almost like a leaf, and it relies so heavily on its camouflage that you can pretty much just do anything with it and it won't fly off, because it's like, I'm a leaf, I'm just going to still be a leaf, I'm going to pretend to be a leaf the whole time. And it's actually quite hard. They look a bit like wombles, but along that vein also I got a couple of drinker moths, which are these ones here, which are very similar shape. This is the female, I think, the light one, and I got a male as well, but all very much these sort of little compact moths. So yeah,
thank you. Well, thank you for popping in and showing us that, because apparently last night there was quite a chat about how you all protect the moths from being eaten by birds. You know, I think, was it Dave talking about the robins waiting patiently for the moths that you trap during the night, and you having to find places away from them. So I like the look of that netting home for them. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. And we are going to, so yeah, and have a good holiday, Sarah, as well. We are going now to Claire in Plymouth. Claire, it works for Plymouth Energy Community, and she is going to tell us a little bit about how we can make green and renewable energy available to as many people as possible, because at the COP26 up in Glasgow, the place in which people are going to be making, and leaders are going to be making decisions about the future management of our environment in the face of the climate emergency, they are going to consider this. They're going to be working out how more people can use green energy and how it can be more affordable to more of us. So let's go over to Claire and see what she has to say this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm a project manager at Plymouth Energy Community, and we've been working with art and energy for quite some time now, and loving every minute of it. And last time I spoke to Naomi, she gave me this question, And the question was, and what they're considering at COP26 is, how do we get to a place where there is clean and green energy for everybody? And Naomi said, God, well, we'll talk a bit about that. And I went, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, I'll do that. Then a couple of days ago, I went back and I had a look at it and I went, what a question. What a question. I mean, imagine that. Everyone, that's absolutely everyone. And then I thought, well, I'll have a Google. How much is everyone? 7.87 billion people. And then I thought, I'm not sure I'd want to be one of the global leaders, was the first thing that I thought. And then I thought, what a conundrum. That's every country, every climate, every single economy, so level of wealth. And the more I thought about it, the more it absolutely blew my mind. There are so many considerations within that question. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but when you've got a really big question, my mind forms a loop and it just goes round and round and round in circles. And it's question after question after question after question. And then you get this sort of flutter, this anxiety, this sort of creeping fear starts that nothing is going to be enough. And so your mind then it travels in another direction. It goes, so if nothing is enough, let's do nothing. Let's do nothing at all. And that entire journey happened in about the first 10 seconds of when I started to look at what I was going to be talking about. And then I remembered that somebody told me a few years ago that if you want to create an alternative reality, then the trick to this is to start at where you want to be and then work backwards. So try and work out what exactly it is that you'd need to do to get there, and just go back and back and back and back, and eventually you'll find what's at the very start of it. And so that's what I thought we maybe should have a look at. So that's what I did. So yes, start at the big end just before we get there. Let's imagine that we do get there. You need the political will to do that. You're going to need the technology. We're definitely going to need the scientists, and that's not me. And we're definitely, we're going to need a lot of money, and that is probably where the global leaders come in. And then I thought, okay, so let's step back, let's get it a little bit closer to home. So I thought, what haven't we got? Well, we don't have a skilled workforce. We don't have the people there to enable it at the moment, not the scale that we need, most certainly. And to get that skilled workforce, we're going to need the investment. And then we're going to need the materials. And that little loop started again. I was going, no, take it back. So I came back even closer. And then I came closer to home. And what I discovered in the end of this flappy panic, my little moth to a flame moment, was that we need this, exactly this, the thing that's happening here and that we do every month and that we're doing in and out at the moment with all sorts of people creating moths. And actually what it boils down to is an interest in the natural world and an understanding of our impact on it. And when I got to that point, I stopped being worried about the whole thing because I could see it all around me. It started to feel an awful lot more manageable, because when you think of it that way, an interest in the natural world and our effect on it, then no action is too small. There isn't an action that's too small, because every action is a sign of change and change happening. And related to that and what I do, I work for a community energy organisation. And last year when they had a count, 424 of those across the UK. So not only having an interest in the natural world or what's around it, but if you wanted to take that a step further, you could see if there's a local community energy organisation in your area, and maybe you could find out what they're doing. That would be the next step. There's a small, manageable step in the right direction. Or maybe it's the other way around, and you want to put a bit of energy in your community, and encourage the interest and the play and the creativity that we've been exploring with art and energy. But I got to a point where instead of answering that question, I came to a conclusion, and that is that it's not better to do nothing, and that every step is worth taking. So thank you for being here, and thank you for showing me moths. And I'll never tire of the buff. And I still wanted an answer to, when I caught a moth in my greenhouse the other night, the thing was, it was like an army moth. It was trying to escape. It was so powerful, and I don't understand why they're like that. And butterflies are feel a bit more gentle. So if anyone can answer that, that would be brilliant. That'd help my interest in the natural world that's around it. And that's where I got to. So I've got no real conclusions, just a hearty thank you, and you know, let's all keep doing what we're doing, and good luck to the global leaders, because I don't have the answer, but I think I know some of the steps.
That's just fantastic, Claire. Thank you. I feel all goosebumpy after that, because that I know that panicky feeling, Claire, that panic when you think, yes, they're going to be talking about this clean energy for everyone, but how on earth, and it's never going to happen. So
you get the micro anxieties with it, don't you? I mean, I'm lucky enough, well, my car died this week, but it was a diesel. And every time I got into it, I felt bad. I hung my head. When I accelerated, I didn't want to look in the mirror. It was like just a relief of getting rid of that. You know, I felt quite a big step to me, but in the scheme of things, it's a small one, but I feel better for it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a little note here from Rachel. I think she says, what does she say here? No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. It's a sort of taking small steps. So yeah, so Moths to Aflame them is one of those small steps of encouraging people to understand the nature and the energy and the way it's interlinked, and looking after nature is one of our first steps. And we are part of that. So thanks, Claire. And let's go and have a look at some more nature with Dave Hodgson down in Cornwall, who's in his shed of dreams. Out of the rain.
I am in the shed of dreams. I wasn't willing to fritz my laptop, I'm afraid, in the rain that is drizzling down in Cornwall. It's a tale of frustration, but maybe it links into the eco-anxiety theme from last night, because my difficult admission from last year was that I neglected to bring the trap in on what turned out to be a rainy night, and the bulb broke. And I'm one of these dinosaur moth trappers who still uses the mercury vapor lamp. So my tale of guilt is that my mercury vapor bulb broke last year, releasing mercury vapor into the environment, which I feel awful about, but also just causing an electrical meltdown. So I wasn't willing to risk that last night. The storm came through sometime in the small hours. So I put the trap away at about 10:30. So really it only had about an hour and a half of darkness to attract the moths in. I went to bed reassured that I'd actually caught some fabulous stuff to show you. So we had I thought I knew that there was in the trap last night was a red data book species. So the red data book is published to tell people about the very endangered species of the UK. And down in Cornwall, we're lucky because we're on the south coast, so we get rare immigrants. But also we have some of these ecological success stories of moths that have colonized the UK from the continent and are spreading northwards with climate change, but also with colonization events. And also sometimes because our air quality is better, and so some of the lichens that some of these moths can feed on, for example, are doing rather well, and so the moths are able to colonize and form populations. So last night I was delighted that I had a blocksworth snout in my trap, which I think for the more northerly moth trappers would cause some excitement. It's usually a day flying moth, but it had come to the trap. And also a four-spotted footman, which we catch in great abundance. And it was only yesterday when I had a visitor come and see the trap, and she was very excited by the four-spotted footman, because in the books it notes them as nationally notable category A, which means a very unusual moth for most people to see, but we catch them in abundance because the four-spotted footman is a species that has colonized the UK or recolonized the UK relatively recently. So in the past, it was considered a rare immigrant, but is now resident and doing rather well. It's a lichen feeder as a caterpillar. And so I think in terms of the theme of ecological improvements and change in our environment, this is an example where lichens are doing rather well because our air quality in the south is improving. So the caterpillars can manage their entire life cycle and pupate and then produce these extraordinary, fantastic looking 4-spotted footman moths. Now, I had them in the trap last night, but I don't have them in the trap this morning. They've done a Houdini act, so I put the trap away in the shed to keep it out of the rain, and I think they must have escaped during that transfer. So much as I would love to show you a Bloxworth snout and a 4-spotted footman, I can't. Now,
I'm just gonna, Dave, does it have a snout? Has it got a sort of pointy nose?
It does have a snout. So I've got, I'm not sure if this is going to work. It looks like it might work for you.
It does, yeah.
The camera is working. So I think over there, if it focuses, it may not focus for you.
We get the general shape.
Yeah, that's the general shape. So bottom left on your screen there is the Bloxworth snout. It's a really beautifully marked creature, but the snout is top right there. And
Yeah.
yes, it has a snout. So it's well named.
I can picture it now. We can all picture it now. Though. I mean,
Yeah.
other people will have known maybe.
So just so that we aren't totally bereft of moths from my trap, there was something enormous thrumming around in the bottom of the trap when I put it away last night, and it's here hiding in my egg box. Now, we saw one of these yesterday, didn't we? This is the UK's largest resident moth. It can't claim to be our largest moth because the death's head hawk moth sometimes flies in to our southerly traps from the continent, but this is our largest resident with its beautiful pink and black striped abdomen. Oops, and it's going to try and escape because it's warming up. It's flapping its wings and pulsating its abdomen in order to warm up to fly. This is the privet hawk. Now, of course, this is the moth that gets anyone new to moth trapping very excited. They like to see the elephant hawks and the privet hawks and the large. It's not showing itself. It's camera shy. See, they like to see the large glamorous moths because it kind of brings them into the sport of moth trapping. It's always fab to catch them in the trap in the morning, but then of course I dive in and I'm looking for the smaller, more unusual moths that are coming through. I'm going to let me release the privet hawk. There's one other moth that I have found this morning that I want to show you, but can I just answer? Simon had a question about the coloration of elephant hawks, so if I can bring some science in. I don't have the answer. Why is an elephant hawk moth bright pink and green? So we, as evolutionary ecologists in our university department, are asking exactly that kind of question. Why are things coloured in the way they are? Now, with moths, I think it's really interesting because sometimes those bright colour schemes can actually be the camouflage that they need to protect them from predation. So pink and green, actually, in a patch of rosebay willow herb is perhaps a very sensible colour scheme to have. But there are, of course, other moths that will be brightly coloured, and they're brightly coloured as a warning to predators to say, "Don't eat me because you're not going to enjoy the meal." And so the burnet moths and the cinnabar moths that eat ragwort will do that. Their caterpillars are brightly coloured because they're toxic, and so the adults will carry some of those toxins as well. So the moths are using two tactics. They're using camouflage sometimes to hide. They're using shock tactics sometimes because they've invested in toxins that say, "Don't eat me." And then there are moths in between that use both. So you've got two pairs of wings if you're a moth. So you can use your fore wings to hide, and then you can use your hind wings to do something else entirely, which can be another kind of shock tactic. So hiding is good until you get found. But once you get found, you might want to then scare off your predator and confuse it. And I've seen mention of the large yellow underwings in the chat, and that's exactly what the large yellow underwings are doing. They're beautifully camouflaged when their wings are closed. But if my predatory robin was to find one, the yellow underwing would open its forewings, revealing its hind wings. Bright yellow shock, and the robin gets confused and struggles to catch that prey item. Now that only works if there's a defense that the moth actually has, and this is so the moths are sequestering toxins from the food plant that the caterpillar ate and storing them in their bodies so that they are not a tasty meal for the predators that are trying to attack them. So the color is being used at the same time to hide, but also to shock and to warn. Okay, so there's the science, and I've got one more moth for you, which I want to show because once you've been mothing for a while, you start to get excited by the teeny tiny ones. So the micro moths are a whole new world, but this one I'm rather pleased with because, and I'm not sure if the camera is going to help you to see this, but it is purple and gold. It's not picking it up because I'm in the dark and gloomy shed of dreams. But this one, it's called Pyrosta aurata. And if you have any classical training and Latin in your memory banks, clearly that name has got something to do with fire and gold. And if you're up close with it, it's a spectacularly beautiful little moth. And I encourage everyone not to just dismiss the micromoths. So the bird cherry ermines are in at the minute. They're beautiful white with speckled with black dots. The garden tabby we've already seen. We've compared it to Harrier jump jets. We've got these fire and gold micromoths, and it can be amazing what we see. There we go, Pyrosta aurata, beautiful bee moth. But the color schemes of these micromoths are just as stunning as some of the large charismatic creatures like the privet hawk that is still with us.
Yeah, and that little tiny moth, they're all those little micro ones are all feeding out there among the grasses and the other vegetation and on the lichens and such like, aren't they? They all have very specific food plants and life cycles.
Yeah, I think we need to, the adults really, the adults that we get excited about and trap, they're just baby making machines, right? So they have quite short lifespans. They're looking for a mate and they're looking to lay eggs. And the business end of the life cycle happens with the caterpillars. They're the ones that are really, really doing the ecological functions. They're consuming vegetation and converting that energy into creating these baby making machines. These are feeding, of course. These are feeding predators, so they're contributing to the food chain and the food web. But I think the really exciting stuff is happening among the caterpillars. It's just that caterpillars don't come to light traps, so we hardly ever see them.
No, that was something I learned more about last year with my oak egger caterpillars, trying to grow them and find them and produce moths. And I hadn't thought about the tiny amount of life existing as a flying beast like that one.
It's a
Naomi,
fraction of the life cycle.
we were talking about colour earlier, and last month John Walters showed us a picture of a caterpillar that he found with his UV torch at night. Yes. And I wonder, how do moths and caterpillars see? Are they using UV to sense each other or see each other? Do they see a colour range like we do?
So I think possibly, but I think the their eyes are not. Some of them have very large eyes, and so you'd expect some of those to be rather well developed. And we know that bees, for example, bees and bumblebees see into the UV range. But I think actually, in terms of finding each other and finding mates, I think the business is happening in the pheromones in the volatile pheromones that are through the air. There may be some role for color in that kind of life, those final stages of actually coming together. But I would argue if there's UV going on, then I think there's probably something quite exciting happening in terms of avoiding the attentions of nocturnal predators. So if we're in the UV range, often we'll have fluorescence going on. So fluorescence happens when we absorb very short wavelength light in the UV spectrum, but then push it back out again as visible light. So if you shine a UV torch and it shines up green or red, then that's fluorescence. And we know that there are lots of predatory species who can see that fluorescence. So why would you advertise yourself? And one of the reasons to advertise yourself is to say to the predator, don't attack me because I'm going to make you ill because I've stored these toxins. So that's the posh name is aposematism, and we're doing some work at the moment that suggests that fluorescence can actually be used as a signal to say don't eat me. It used to be dismissed as it wasn't possible to be used like that, but that's because we perceive things with human eyes and we can't see into the UV. But we now know that birds can see into the UV, and so they can detect those subtle contrast changes from a caterpillar that's taking in the UV and then throwing it back out as a kind of a ghostly, sickly green or a bright yellow.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks very much, Dave. And yeah, we'll consider the colour in a different, well, it's a stupid thing to say, really, different light. But anyway, we'll move on. And this time we've been learning a lot there about the camouflage and the colours and taking note of the micromoths and the changes in population relating to the better air quality and so on and so on. But we're now moving on to the work that we've been doing in schools, where we've been initiating youngsters into catching moths for the first time and using a trap and taking part in the Moths to a Flame project. So I'm going to hand over to Jenny, who has been managing this work with schools, and see what she has to show us.
There we go, tech person forgetting to unmute, that's no good. So we've been doing lots of work with schools, all the way through from foundation all the way through to some secondary schools getting involved. And there's loads of resources on the website, would be the first thing I'd say. So if you know of any schools, anybody working in schools, anybody that would like to get involved, then please do encourage them to check out the website and to explore further. But we've been very lucky in Plymouth in that we were able to get some funding to go into 20 Plymouth primary schools, thanks to Babcock, and deliver them moth traps so that the young people could actually see the moths, experience the wonder that we're experiencing this morning, but actually holding the moths, which is so exciting, and then making some moths. Ooh. So my display is now all going to fall apart, but I'd just like to show you that these are the moths sent by just one Plymouth primary school towards the project. So it's quite exciting on that front. I've got a little video here. So I've got an advantage in that, oh, hang on a minute, that's the wrong one. But an advantage in that my daughter happens to be at one of the primary schools that was involved. And so I did a little interview with her about her experience, totally unscripted and exciting. Anyway, this is what the schools received. So on a Monday morning, I dropped off a big box with a battery powered moth trap in it, all sorts of goodies, ID sheets, collection pots, copies of Miranda Barlow's beautiful storybook, The Moth's Whisper, the materials needed to make milk bottle moths, so black marker pens, UV marker pens, UV floodlight, and activity sheets and so on, and then collected those on the Friday afternoon. It was interesting because when we've delivered into schools before, we've gone in and run activities, and that seemed to be very much what the schools were expecting, but largely because of COVID, and also because of this interesting thing in terms of moth trapping, of setting up the moth trap one evening, going back the next morning, it worked really well with delivering a pack and then letting the teachers, giving the teachers that control to be able to tweak it around to their circumstances. And it's been amazing to see what the teachers have done with that and how they've run with it. But anyway, I'm going to press play and let Erin just talk for a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Erin, and Moths to a Flame came to my school.
Hi Erin, what did the moth trap look like?
The moth trap, first of all, it looks kind of plain and like a silver box with bits around it. The next day, there was lots of moths, all types of different ones. They were so beautiful and pretty and so amazing. They were in amongst these egg boxes, and we found this yellow underwing, and in the forest we found orange underwing.
What other Moths to a Flame activities did you get up to?
We coloured in moths and we brought them to life. It was very fun. Also, we did activity pack. There was a word search, and there was an energy detector one that is really fun, because if you just looked around you now, you might say the apples in the fruit bowl, even our energy, because we eat them and get energy from it.
What would be your hope for the future?
My hope for the future is that we have a plastic-free world.
My hope is for Plymouth to make more windmills.
My hope is for Plymouth to put up more windmills.
Is to make people turn off the lights when they're not in use.
My hope is to have more renewable energy. My hope for the future is more solar power.
I hope we can plant more trees in the future.
To plant less trees.
Promise is that I will turn off the light when I'm not using it.
Is to plant 10 trees after burning 1.
So you can see there a mixture of the photos and videos that we've had sent in from the schools. I think that what keeps coming back to me is that, I don't know, the enthusiasm. We had lots of different comments of feedback from the teachers, and in particular, awe and wonder kept coming back as a kind of connecting the children. So they were linking their science, their art, and the real world, which they're so used to seeing things in books and maybe doing a few experiments, but all being quite safe and quite predictable. And so going out, and some of the schools, because of the weather that we've been having, a couple of months ago, we've been sending the packs out from Easter. So there were a couple of weeks where they got very few moths, but actually the teachers were saying how much the students connected and could kind of put themselves into the moth's place and going, well, actually, looking out the window when I went to bed last night or when I woke up this morning, there's no way if I was a moth I'd want to be out there. And really picking up on the metaphor and thinking about energy in a very different way. Again, quite a lot of feedback about children who weren't naturally attracted to science, connecting by going out into the playing fields and seeing these moths and the kind of hands-on element. And rough estimate, our colleague Kat's been collecting the feedback and so on. And from those 20 Plymouth schools, 20 Plymouth primary schools, during the week that they received the pack, so that's not counting any way that they've continued on with the activity packs afterwards or shared the storybook to other year groups or anything like that. We believe that we've interacted with 2,132 children in Plymouth have connected with the Moths to a Flame project through those packs being loaned out. And also the number of schools that have said, we absolutely love the moth trap. They wouldn't have thought of doing that. Where can they hire one from next year? Are we going to continue doing this? Where can they buy their own, etc., etc. So it really is fantastic, and yeah, long may it continue. And we're working with other primary schools now. We're going to be going to schools in Exeter, and as I say, there are loads of resources on the website to get involved, even if you haven't got access to that kit that you saw in the picture at the beginning, but also reaching out to local mothers. So if you're a mother and you've got your trap and you'd feel happy, schools are pretty secure places these days in terms of fences and so on. Loaning your moth trap to a local school and setting it up for them and seeing what's there the next morning, I'd really encourage it, because it's wonderful to have the young people's enthusiasm and see it through their eyes.
Fabulous. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, we're running a little bit behind schedule, but it's all for brilliant reasons. And so we will move quickly on to Amy, and we have Emma with Amy looking at the moths in Abbott's Kerswell that came overnight. Hello, Amy.
Hello, good morning. Yes, very inspiring stuff, Jenny. It makes me think I need to start nagging my headmaster a bit more to get my moth trap up there and start looking at that project. I think it's really great. Thank you. Okay, so it's a bit of a wet night, not a lot to show you, no big showy hawk moths, but a couple of nice things. So what I'm going to do, Emma's here, works with me with Devon Butterfly Conservation, and Emma's going to hold the camera and I'm going to point at some moths. And if we're not sure of names or we're getting names wrong, please, experts, chip in. Okay. Over to you, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, not an awful lot, but what we do have here, which is probably the big showy one, is our Jersey tiger moth. Can you all see that?
Yeah, that's great.
And
they've come up. Have they come up from the south, or do they actually breed? And are they in this area?
yeah, they're quite well established in the along the south coast now. They have certainly Dorset and Devon, but they're thought to have been immigrants originally, and I know the numbers have increased since the 1970s. They do go further down the coast. They've been found in London, but nationally, because of the limited geography of them, I think they're quite scarce. So it is quite exciting to see them. And if you haven't seen one before, I don't know if I can get it to display. I've got my little paintbrush here, but we might see a flash of its beautiful orange underwings. Are you going to show us? Come on. Well, you can see, sort of get an idea from underneath there of the colour. But it's just so lovely to see it. And these are our day flying and night flying moths. And this moth may well have been attracted by my now very, very floppy Buckley that got rather smashed in the storm last night. But when I came out here last night and set the trap, I was really aware of the smells of the flowers. I've got this phlox here and the Buckley, and it was a really sort of thick, nectary, scented garden. I thought, well, if I was a moth, I'd probably want to come and have a sniff around here. So yeah, there's our Jersey tiger moth. And then next to Jersey tiger moth here is it early thorn? I think it's an early thorn. You had once, didn't you, Simon? And it's got a very, very unique resting position. It looks much more like a butterfly. Very, very pretty. I don't know, maybe you should put the camera on this side. You might see a bit more light of the detail of the wing. It's or maybe not, maybe it's a bit darker now. But that's good. Yeah, the way they rest there, you would think it was a butterfly, wouldn't you? We've got a barred straw, which, speaking of other unique resting positions, this one has one too. Can you see, looking down on it, it's sort of got its bottom in the air. And then
that's beautiful, that one. I like that one. That's different.
Barred straw there. We've got a common, I think it's a common white wave on the box.
Oh yeah.
Might be something else. And another scalloped oak. I showed you a picture of that one last night. I know you did a picture of, one of you did a picture, didn't you, of that one? That Art and Energy, I remember seeing it. Really pretty. And then where's my bird? For anyone watching last night will remember there was a bird poo moth. Where's he gone? A Chinese character, it's called.
It was there. Is it there? Is it gone?
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Can you see it here? Really small.
Yes, that's good.
And then if you look down on it, it just looks like something that's left on a bird table. Amazing camouflage. We've got an interesting moth trap intruder here. Another thing that's drawn to light and energy. Very, very beautifully coloured. I don't know who you are. Any experts out there? Look at the blue hue on this beetle. Anybody know who this one is?
I love beetles as well, you know.
Yeah, gorgeous colours underneath. And plenty of footmen here that look like the pumpkin seeds. Who's that there?
And that Sarah and Paul said they got 159 of those footmen.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was on Thursday night they got
that. Heart and darts, lots and lots of heart and darts. Oh, down here, the little heart shape and the dart shape on their back. They like to play dead. And we've got buff ermine, the ones I raised last year, if you remember. This, I don't know what this is, but it's very pretty. Can anyone tell me? It's got a kind of bump on the top of its head.
I might be saying it's a nut tree tussock.
Nut tree tussock, okay.
Is that
nut tree tussock? Yeah. Sorry, beetle. He's really gonna have to empty him out in a minute. And what else do we have, Emma? I think that's it. Lots and lots of little brown ones that have escaped. We're literally having to find clapper. They've got mealworms here. I'm trying to give them instead because they're just so interested in a trap here. I think it might be a Quaker. Lots more footmen. Yeah, that's kind of it really. Not a great haul.
No, thank you very much, Amy and Emma. Thank you, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of months. I think you've got August off, haven't you?
August off, back for the September show. Yeah,
lovely. Thanks. See you. Bye. Bye. That was a good haul as well. And now we move on to Sarah, who got her moths last night. No, the night before when it wasn't raining. But Sarah, how are you doing?
Hello there. Yes, no, I'm fine, thank you. Yes, hello everybody.
Hello. We can't quite see you yet. But I'm sure.
Can't hear you.
No, and I can't see. Oh, there we are. There you are. That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, lovely.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yes, we've had that experience of the light bulb cracking when it gets wet. So it's very hot, and then if rain gets onto it, then obviously it does explode. So yeah. So we did opt to put our trap out on Thursday night. And then this morning, I was asked to talk a little bit about the relationship with birds. Yeah. I think, is that right? That's what I prepared anyway.
For the RSPB.
So I work for the RSPB. Yeah, so not surprisingly, I suppose. Although I'm not an ecologist, I have to say. So I'm an amateur in terms of my interest in moths. But the RSPB, as people probably know, works to protect nature here and abroad, actually. Although obviously our name suggests we do like birds, which is true, we like them because they are a top predator, and therefore if they're in a good way, then we know that the rest of the web of life beneath them is also in a good way. So they're what we call indicators of a good, healthy environment. So they are top predators. Even the cute little blue tits that you might see in the garden, in the parks, gets through an awful lot of other wildlife. And sadly, birds are in decline. So we know they are, that actually from that as an indicator that our environment's not doing so well. And that's especially true for farmland and woodland birds. And one of the reasons for that, we know, is the timing and availability of food. Along with loss of habitat being probably the other main reason. So most birds rely on insects at some point during the year. Even house sparrows, which we think of as eating our bird seed or the scraps of bread that we throw out, they have to find insects to feed their young. So when their young hatch out, they can't cope with seed. It's not the right time of year anyway for seed. So that's not the natural season for seed. So they have to find insects. And one of the things that we think is happening with sparrows in urban areas where they are in a big decline is that loss of insect food. So probably due to the use of pesticides, but more likely actually people have been concreting over front gardens, concreting over back gardens for patios and putting decking down. So just that loss of that natural resource is possibly what is contributing to their decline. And then, of course, we've been shifting to planting things that aren't linked to our wildflowers or our wild plants. So the New Zealand flax, or which looks very dramatic, but actually doesn't really do anything in terms of providing a home and a habitat for insects to survive on, and then has that knock-on effect. So that's kind of generally what's going on with birds and insects. We know we need a healthy insect population for healthy birds. And there are a few special relationships. So blue tits, for example, which I mentioned before, they don't just eat caterpillars, but they do rely heavily on caterpillars to feed their young when they hatch out. And I hadn't realised they can have up to 15 eggs, so 15 young in a nest, but obviously kind of 8, 10 is a bit more usual. So they time when those eggs hatch out, and don't ask me how they do this, Dave might have a better answer than me. They actually time when they lay their eggs so that when the young hatch out, it coincides with the emergence of the caterpillars and the emergence of the leaves on the trees, and then the caterpillars come out to eat the leaves of the moths. And it's often the winter moth is actually one of the main caterpillars that they eat. So that, as its name suggests, flies in winter. The adults fly in winter, but their young are feeding during the spring, and then they will go into their cocoon, and then they'll hatch out in winter. And they one of the few moths that actually manage to survive in winter and fly in those really cold nights and wet nights in winter. So they're specially evolved to make use of that niche that not many other moths are using, and to manage to do that. And so one of the things that's happening with climate change is that season is changing. So the spring is happening earlier, the leaves are coming out earlier, the caterpillars are emerging earlier. And blue tits have cottoned on to this, so they are also nesting a little bit earlier, but obviously they're not quite getting there, so they are finding it much harder to judge as well because of the variability. And if you think about this year, we had that really long cold spell actually in April, which set everything back. And the blue tits were completely thrown out by that. I mean, we usually have a nest in one of our boxes here in our garden, and I don't think they succeeded this year at all. I think they tried a couple of times and then just gave up because they just couldn't work out what on earth was going on. So that increased variability that climate change is bringing is really just throwing everything out, because this lovely relationship that's built up over tens of thousands of years is being thrown out in a very short period of time actually.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on there. And it does mean that they are struggling to find enough food for their chicks.
Yeah.
So sorry.
I was just going to say that therefore the blue tit and the population in relation to the climate change is one of the a sort of really good story to get across to everybody in terms of their sort of understanding of nature, and going back to Claire's original thought about starting with understanding our natural systems. Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, it is.
And
yes.
so I'm going to pause you there.
Got me there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, because we've got to go over to Emma, and we've got to finish round about 9. So thank you for the explaining more clearly the link between the birds and the insect populations and that story of the blue tit. That's brilliant. Thank you. And we now move over to Emma and say bye-bye to Sarah for now, but you might hopefully come back to future Watch Moths and be a Mother and entertain us with the moths as well, Sarah. Thank you. Emma, hello Emma, in being the last on our list, and coming from Oxfordshire, the wind. I remember last night you were on top of the hill with the wind turbines going fast in the wind and the solar array. What are you going to do as part of the Moths to a Flame project?
Well, what I'll do, so I don't ramble on too much, because I realise there's not too much time left, is I'll share my screen quickly, if that's all right, and just very briefly talk through some of our plans. So really, we were my Moths to a Flame project partner animation isn't working, never mind. We were so inspired by the whole project that we wanted to do something really creative up on our site. So we're using the Big Green Week in September to do that. And also because this whole last year, we've really not been able to engage with people face to face in the way we normally would, particularly schools, but also with sort of adults and families on site. So I have kind of been badgering away to try and make this an opportunity to invite people back to see us. So there we go, lovely. That's just me not clicking. So when the moths land at Westmill, what we're going to do is run a series of tours which will reintroduce people to the site. We can talk about later, the most recent developments and how energy has changed in the last couple of years and our use of renewable energy. And then alongside that, we're going to run energy themed workshops. And this is my bit really, being an ex-teacher and a sort of artist and designer. I want to get kids and adults on site, but I'd like to get them sort of making and talking as well to help put our point across and introduce them to some of these topics. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually do some more moth making. And although we're really encouraging it in schools and through the homeschool groups that we're in touch with at the moment, and also I'm about to harass all my friends who have families and say, wouldn't this be a great thing to do during your holidays? I want to do some more of that when people come and see us, just because I think, and Claire was talking earlier about community conversations. For us, that was such an important part of how we grew. And I want to get back to that. And I think for me, as an artisan designer, making things with your hands, especially with other people, starts conversations. And suddenly you've got this great opportunity with the moth making to actually start talking about that. So for me, it's going to be really exciting to do that with people face to face. The second thing I want to do for a similar reason, and actually Jenny was talking about this whole idea of awe and wonder. Again, as a teacher, one of the greatest things I feel that I can do is inspire awe and wonder, the sort of alchemy of processes in design and in art. And solar powered printing, or cyanotypes, are a brilliant way of doing that. So using some of the flora and fauna, well, not the fauna, sorry, the flora that's on our site, especially around the solar panels, what we're going to do is have a session finding ferns and plant life that we can use to make cyanotype prints. And the brilliant thing about those is we can do them using the power of the sun. So obviously it'll depend slightly on the weather. You can do them in light, but it will take longer. If you've got direct sunlight, it does help. And then they're just developed in water. And again, it's something that they can see, they can think about their composition, their design, then they can see this sort of ghostly print coming to light, and it's really exciting. So we're going to have some sessions doing that, and hopefully do some onto fabrics as well, a bit like Naomi's beautiful black drop there, I think. And then I want, because of my sort of design technology background as well, I want to incorporate some other things. So what we thought we might do is make little DIY solar cells, and these are really easy to do, and I've recently found a way of doing them using old CDs, so recycling old CDs. And you can actually, power something. You can recharge your phone with the power you can make by making a tiny solar cell on a CD. So again, it's something really practical that children and adults can make and see come to life, come to fruition at the time they've made it. And it helps us start a conversation about the panels as well and how they work. And then finally, and this is a little bit of a one for me, because it's something I've always been fascinated in. At the moment, I'm starting to look at and get the bits and pieces together to construct a little pedal generator. And I'm really keen to do this because I think it'd be great for us to have something that we can take around to schools, but also have up on site that we can just put a bike into and rig up and show the process of, how this sort of rotational energy can be transformed. So when we're talking about the turbines, it brings that to life. And then also do things like, for example, you could power a phone recharger, or we could power one of the UV lamps and incorporate that into showing off the display of the moths that are made on site. But also I'm really keen to get it to the stage where I can power a little projector, because we've been making some films about the site. And then also, if it's possible, power a projector so we can project some of the videos that Moths to a Flame have made. So at the moment it seems ambitious, but I know what I'm doing to an extent. This is my project over the next month or so. So if that comes to fruition, we're going to have a little dark tent next to our sort of creative space, where people can go and they can try this out and they can see how much power they need to put in, an input-output experiment. And then we may also have a little booth next to it where people can leave their whispers as well, their whispers of hope. So yeah, it's hopefully a lot to be thinking of. We've already started organisation. The trustees are really excited. It's brilliant. So I have to thank you guys for kind of inspiring us with everything you've been doing. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to sort of video all the lessons and put something together as well, so other people can see what we're doing.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emma.
Not at all. I hope that was quick enough.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. We're pleased to have seen. We don't mind overrunning a little bit. I know one or two people have to rush off at 9, but it's good to give everybody their little bit of time to tell us about their projects, and in Sarah's case of food chains and the role of moths in food for birds, which there's a bit of chat there about Amy's daughter called Robin. She's not a robin, not eating the birds. Let's just finish off, because we're now 7 minutes over. Let's just finish off with Simon showing us this four spot footman. Are you able to do that, Simon? And then we shall say bye-bye to everybody.
Yes, here we go.
Let's give the moth the final, be the star of the show at the end.
It's only the female that has the spots. This is the male. But yeah, Dave was saying this is quite a local moth nationally, but we have it. I think it's growing in population down here in Devon and Cornwall.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely. Yeah.
Good old foot. Thanks very much, and thanks to everyone and all our presenters. Fantastic variable mix of energy and nature this morning. I found myself really enjoying. Well, I'd always enjoy it, but when you're responsible in some ways, you sort of worry about it. But it's been great this morning, and I hope everybody can go and enjoy coffee, another breakfast, a bit of a walk in nature, and think about just small actions, small steps towards this clean energy for everyone, a clean, beautiful planet to live in. So bye-bye. And Jenny, do you want to say anything about finishing?
Yep, sorry, lost the unmute button again. So just to remind everybody that the mothsjflame.art website has loads of ways of joining in. So you can make your moth record your whisper, which we were talking about more last night with the poetry, and where we were talking about schools, there is under the join in button, which is up here in the top right hand corner, there's this information for schools and groups button. So it's not just for schools by any means. Groups of all ages and backgrounds and interests have been getting involved and joining in, making milk bottle moths, recording their whispers, getting creative in other ways, exploring the world of moths, becoming energy detectives. There's lots of good fun stuff on there. So do check that out. And our next event, our next Watch Moths event, let's just have a quick look and see what we've got coming up. So this was the Watch Moths, which we're at the moment. We've got fortnightly milk bottle moth making sessions. And then we've got some in-person sessions coming up, which are really excited, and there's lots more to be adding in there, including events elsewhere in the country, not just down in Devon, involving some of our partner organisations. And when is the next Watch Moths is August the 20th and 21st. Pop it in your diaries now, book your tickets.
And it's going to concentrate, part of it's going to concentrate on art. So we've got Sarah Gillespie talking about how she makes moth mezzotins in her exhibitions at Morton Hampstead, Green Hill Art Centre, and we've got other artists coming in to share the way they express.
Yeah, I mean, they seem to say that there's quite limited numbers.
We really look forward to seeing you back again, and thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Brilliant show, loved it.
Great.
One thing just to add in, because it's come up in the chat again a couple of times today, is about homemade moth traps and simple moth traps.
Yeah,
and we're going to try and come back and have something, probably, do you think, at the August one, Naomi, with just a 5 minutes on.
Yeah.
We might pick Simon's brains too, as to how to make a moth trap, right from really simple ones through to homemade and beyond.
We'll try and do that, because we keep meaning to.
Okay. And can I ask Emma to teach? Can I ask Emma to teach us how to make a solar thing with a CD?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I could do that.
Oh, I really want to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward actually. So yeah, I shall show you.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you, Emma.
No worries.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.